Hi there, Emile. Nice to see that you have sent us your first set of essays. Let's get into it straight away and see what you wrote, okay? So, the first one is about an enjoyable activity with a child. Here's what you wrote. A great part of people think that being with a child and doing some enjoyable activities with him or her can improve their skills and imagination better than reading. I totally agree with the point that some useful activities could have bigger impact on child. This essay will discuss the benefits of such time spending using my personal experience and recent studies to demonstrate points and support arguments. Okay, this is fine as an introduction. You've included all the elements that you should. You've given your position because it asks you very directly to what extent do you agree, and you have said to what extent you agree. So you said you totally agree, and then you say what you're going to discuss. So all that is fine. The one thing that I want to change is a little bit of some of this grammar. Okay, so first of all, and I should say add to that some of the lexical resource. So a great part of people is not an accurate expression. It's just not natural. It's not something we say, a part of people. So we could say a number of people. Okay, a great number of people would probably be a really good way of saying that. You could say many people think that, etc., etc. So there are other expressions to use with people rather than a great part, which just doesn't really sound right. Then you had some problems with your articles. That's your thes. So I want to read through those first two sentences again and show you where they were used incorrectly. So let's pretend that you said a great number of people think that being with a child and doing some enjoyable activities with him or her can improve their skills and imagination better than reading. That was fine. I totally agree with the point that some useful activities could have a bigger impact on. Now here you could say either a child or the child. And when we say the child like this, we mean all children. Okay? So that's where a couple of the problems were. Let's move on. Firstly, reading has numerous benefits. Nevertheless, much more useful abilities, such as concentration or memory, could be improved by playing puzzle games, okay? It is largely, not it is largely, but this is largely, and no comma here. So this is largely because children have become stressful and distracted due to digital technologies. For example, a recent study by Nanyang Technological University has shown that puzzle games not only increase the attention but also push the brain to concentrate harder by changing level of difficulty. As a consequence, the brain places of concentration. Okay, place. I think you mean. Okay, all right. Concentration, accuracy, contact repeatedly. Okay. I liked your example. It was good. So let's look at a couple of other things here. The first thing that's missing for me in this paragraph is that kind of summary statement which links back to that first sentence in your paragraph. So really what we need here in this paragraph is a takeaway, something like a therefore it is clear that playing puzzle games has positive benefits on a child. Now the other thing that I wasn't really thrilled about was this sentence here. You're talking about puzzle games and how beneficial they are, okay? And then you have this thing about digital technologies. So just from the logic of this kind of progression of ideas, I was expecting you to say something about digital technologies and how they, hurt us while puzzle games are beneficial and so forth. But you didn't talk about digital technologies at all. Instead, you went straight into puzzle games. So this sentence and its placement here really felt rather strange to me. So I don't think it was such a good idea to include it here. I would ask you to either rewrite it or to exclude it or to do something, because there has to be a very logical progression of your ideas. And here I think you kind of lost that. Okay. All right, let's move on. Secondly, by doing some of the sports, see, this is what I mean with the articles. Secondly, by doing some sports, tactical decisions could be made easier. It is an important skill in a child's apostrophe S growth and development process. For instance, most Lithuanian primary schools are still stuck in the same learning courses as in 1990, whereas the new ones have prepared new programs with much more physical activity lessons such as stretching, running, and playing reaction games. Therefore, even competitions at home make the mind work better. All right, this paragraph to me seems really a little underdeveloped. Like there was much more you could have said about this. Perhaps you didn't have ideas, perhaps you didn't know how to develop it, but it did need a little more substance, okay? Now remember, we're supposed to be talking about better skills and imagination. You decided to talk about better skills. So you talked about tactical decisions. Okay, so just for the sake of ease and clarity, you're basically talking about decision making, right? Okay, so you said it was an important skill. I just want to walk through this paragraph with you, okay? So you said that sports help children learn decision making, and that's an important skill for a child. And then you talked about, you compared Lithuanian schools. And you said that, you know, some are very kind of old-fashioned and some of them have these games. And then your kind of takeaway here was that competitions at home make the mind work better. So I think you started off well, but when you got to your example, you kind of lost the logical progression of your ideas again, and you started developing it in a way where there wasn't one cohesive idea, and there wasn't kind of like a nice stream of ideas, all right? So you said that this is an important skill in a child's development process. All right, that's fine. But what would have made more logical sense here is if you had talked about what kinds of tactical decisions, what kind of opportunities sports give children to make decisions, okay? And how, you know, maybe that there's some research that children who are involved in sports, develop better decision-making skills by approximately 35%. So that's the kind of example that would have fit here, rather than this comparison of Lithuanian schools, which really doesn't prove much of what you're saying. And then this sentence too didn't make sense, because when did you talk about competitions at home? Okay? So that, I mean, I didn't understand the jump there between your ideas. First, you're comparing Lithuanian schools, and then you're talking about these competitions at home. So we were definitely missing something here. Okay? Now, let's go to your conclusion, then I'll tell you one other issue that we have with this essay. So, to conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that puzzle games and various sports could be used as significant tools for improving a child's imagination, apostrophe S, concentration, and brain activity. Okay, so now, here's the good news. The good news is that you've done a good job of applying the template to your first essay, okay? It still needs some work, because you still need to appropriately end each paragraph so that it links back to the first sentence of that paragraph. So that needs a little work, but in general, you've done a good job of this, okay? The vocabulary was fine. The grammar was fine, except for some of those things with articles, these words. So those are some good points to be starting with, okay? Now, for me, what needs to be worked on is obviously the task achievement, all right, and the coherence and cohesion, making sure that your ideas are linked together logically. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you about, and this is probably the biggest problem with this essay, is this, okay? The essay asks you to talk about better skills and imagination. You did not talk about imagination at all, okay? You can see here that they've separated these two, better skills, Okay, that's one kind of concept that they want you to talk about, and imagination is another concept. And the fact that they've separated it like that, rather than just lumping imagination in with the other skills, shows us that they really want us to spend some time on imagination. So a better way to have developed this would have been to talk about, whatever here in this paragraph, and then in the next paragraph talking about activities that help improve a child's imagination. Okay? You didn't mention it at all, except for, you just mentioned the word here, and then you mentioned the word here, but that's just not enough. You really do need to spend time developing this, okay? So that's the feedback about this. We spent a ton of time on this first essay, so let's go into your next. All right, so now let's go into your second essay about schools and whether they should be more entertaining. Today, there are so many debates trying to decide which ways of teaching are more appropriate in educational places. I truly agree that nowadays schools should involve more entertaining activities instead of using only scientific education. This essay will discuss the benefits of entertaining, I don't understand that, of an entertaining system using personal experience and latest research, not sciences, to demonstrate points and support arguments. That's fine. Firstly, it is obvious that the main goal of school is to educate, whereas children are expected to feel free in various situations and communication. All right, I don't understand that. Are you trying to say that there's this conflict here because schools need to educate, but children want to feel free? So I'm not really entirely clear on that sentence. It is largely because our society has become... No, not kind of. Our society has become, you could have just said extremely competitive, or this is because our society has become a space only for competition, something like that, where the most recognized person is free at interaction and confidence. I don't understand this. For example, one of the most diversified raw materials company in the Baltic region, selects employees not only by their knowledge of the specific industry, but also by their communication skills with others. As a consequence, children have to be prepared in their young days. Educational institutions are responsible for engaging in a more entertaining process where children could express their thoughts and improve communication skills. All right. Again, I really feel like you went off on a tangent. You know what I kind of feel like? I feel like you're kind of going from point A to point B and then to point C. And then rather than going to point D and continuing, it's as if you're going from point G and then F and then E and then D. So it's like you're getting to your point backwards. There was a little too much development of this, and I'm like, why are we getting into this? Why are you showing me this? What's your point here? So I really want you to work on this a little bit to get to your point sooner, essentially. So how could you have fixed this? Because I know I said this in your other essay as well. Let's see if we can somehow work it out together to see how you could reorganize this paragraph. I actually like the last sentence. So you could have started with it. You could have said educational institutions are responsible not only for providing knowledge, but also creating an environment where children can express their thoughts and improve communication skills. This is because communication, the ability to communicate, it has become very important in our competitive world. For example, a company in the Baltic region, whatever it's called, selects employees, or rather cites communication skills as one of the top 5 most important skills for a employee to have, or an employee to have. As a consequence, this is school's responsibility to help prepare them. So that's how I would have developed it, okay? That's a kind of a more linear way of doing this, and I think it's what you need to be doing here. All right, so let's move on. Secondly, while children's '(s) heads are getting full of scientific data, imagination contracts respectively.
Okay. I know what you're trying to say, but okay. It is important because imagination needs to be stimulated, ED, in order to perform properly. Get rid of this itself. For instance, recent studies have shown that by doing activities such as singing, playing instruments, various instruments, and games, and dancing, no. Let's try it again. Studies have shown that, get rid of by, doing activities such as singing, playing various instruments and games, and dancing has improved children's apostrophe S imagination as well as uh, uh, self-motivation. You don't need to say greater because you said it greatly improved, as well as self-motivation, self-confidence, and better social skills. Therefore, it should not be forgotten that if we want to, you don't grow a soul because you grow plants, okay? If we want to raise creative souls and not robots, such entertaining processes must be involved in not colleges, schools, okay? To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that using various entertaining methods would bring creative and happy people. I don't like this word bring, would create, but that you can't say create creative. Would I don't know. Let me think about a word here. Using various entertaining methods would develop, perhaps, creative and happy people. So, or would support creative and happy people, you could say as well. All right. So I think you've got some information to start off with to help you with your next set of essays. You're doing well. You've got the template down, so that's good, but you got to watch out for some of the things that I've talked about with both of these essays, okay? See if you can apply some of the things that we've talked about today, as well as the things along that you've learned in the course. And let's see another set of essays from you. In addition to your essays, I want to see these 2 essays corrected. And you also need to start an error correction list where you write down the mistakes that were pointed out to you and next to each mistake what the correct version would be. You'll add to that with each essay correction. Okay? So get these 3 things into us in the next 24 hours or so you can apply everything you've learned. And we'll be here, we'll be waiting for them. So good luck.